Hey YouTube, Murphy Firearms Training. Today I'm going to be setting up a Lee press with a Lee 3-die set in 45 Colt. So here's one of our empty brass, actually nickel plated. You'll see mixed brass because I don't care. Shell holder, 3-die set, large pistol primers, bullets. These are quite old. You can't buy them that cheap now. I probably had these for 10 years. Bought them on a good price. Bought them at a good price when I could. 225 grain lead flat points. Open that up and show you what we've got here. So these guys here is what we're going to be loading. Okay, nice wax ring on them. So and we're going to be using Lee press. So here's our Lee press. Okay, and so I'm going to kind of give you a startup of how we're going to do this. So the first thing you have to do is you have to pick your powder. So I'm going to get my loading manual here. Just push all of that to the side. I do use Modern Reloading by Richard Lee, and I like it because it has a lot of manufacturers' data. So instead of looking at Hogden's website and looking for Winchester powders and looking at Nosler's website, and it combines a lot of stuff in one book. And I've got it bookmarked where we're going here today. So I am loading, if you paid attention to the box, a 225 grain lead bullet. And so here's our data. And you see 225 grain jacketed bullet. 225 grain lead bullet, they have one load, accurate number 5. I don't have accurate number 5 powder. So how on earth do I load a 225 grain lead bullet when there's no data for a 225 grain lead bullet? And the answer is you use 230 grain lead bullet data. You can always use heavier bullet data. The reason being is because a heavier bullet will generate more pressure if you're driving in the same velocity. And so if you use a lighter bullet than the data, you'll always be under the maximum pressure. So 230 grain lead, and we see we've got universal IMR target. Flip the page here to the load I'm actually going to use. And if you've never seen the Modern Reloading, they actually list them by velocity. So the first powder will be the highest velocity, and then it'll go down from there under the max loads. And so if you come up here, 230 grain lead bullet, okay, velocities here 900 and some, and they kind of squeak down. I'm actually going to use IMR Trail Boss. That's the powder I'm going to use today. I'll show you that powder. IMR Trail Boss. IMR Trail Boss is made for lead bullets, and it mimics black powder loads. And so I enjoy muzzle loading shooting, and so in my Ruger Vaquero, my 45 Colt, I can shoot a black powder-esque load, an old-timey style load, without the hassle of black powder. So, IMR Trail Boss, and we're going to see our starting load is 5.5, and our maximum load is 6.5. And so we want to pick something between 5.5 and 6.5. Now, if you go to the back of this book, they have the auto disc capacity chart. And we're going to find IMR Trail Boss. Lay this down so I can follow the line. So here's IMR Trail Boss, and we're going to roll across here. And we're looking for a number between 5.5 and 6.5. So there's 5.4. So we could probably go with 5.4. We could go with 5.8. We could go with 6.3. Any of those fall in that 5.5 to 6.5. You don't want to go over here. That's too high pressure. Okay. Well, I'm going to go right here, 5.8 grains. That's my target goal, 5.8. It's right in the middle, and that's what I try to do for most, unless I'm loading like a really heavy Magnum, like a 44 Magnum or something like that, a 500 Smith & Wesson. I tend to go with something that's just middle of the road. So if the minimum's 5.5, the maximum is 6.5, I'm going to pick something that's in the middle, 5.8, 6.3. Both of those would be fine, but I'm going to pick this 5.8 and go up 1.26. Okay, so remember that number, 1.26. So, set that to the side. Here is my powder measure. Lee Auto Disc. There's the bottom. There's the top. And you'll see I went ahead and wrote on here, 45 Colt, 225 grain lead flat point, Trail Boss, blank CCs, blank grains. Okay, I do that every time I reload. Every time I reload, I sit down and I write this on top of my powder measure with piece painter's tape, and I leave it next to the press. I leave the powder next to the press. I leave the primers next to the press. I leave the dye that I'm not using next to the press. And I'm going to be using a single stage press today, so you'll see how that works. But you could easily use, I've got a turret press here. You could use the turret press if you wanted to. My coffee in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and write in here 1.26. 1.26 cc's. Now, our book said that would be 5.8 grains. I don't believe that. I'm going to weigh it. But anyway, 1.26 cc's. I'll set that lid to the side. So here's our powder measure. Now, the way the auto disc works, okay, the way the auto disc works is you have a bunch of these discs. So here's one of them. And it just so happens I've got this set up that we're going to see 1.26. So there's 1.26. And the way this works is you're going to put that 1.26, you're going to put that on this little catch tab here. So if I can get this thing to prop up for me, it's probably not going to happen. So I'll just lay it down, okay? Take that 126, okay? So there's 126, and sit it, ta-da, on that little peg. So that's your 1.26 cubic centimeter volumetric measure. All right, so set that there, and then you're going to screw this on top, okay? So we'll screw that on top. So I'm going to, can't do that one-handed, so I'll be right back. All right, so we've got that screwed down, ready to go, and you can see these crack. If you take these on and off a lot, they crack. And so I just put this on some wax paper and got some JB Weld on here. And that was 10 years ago, and I'm still using it. And it's no worse for the wear, and it still works. So a nice, easy way to not have to buy a bunch of these when they crack. Lee products are great because they get you into reloading fairly cheaply. However, sometimes they are cheaply made. And so little hacks like this can save you some trouble. So that's our first step. Select your powder and then set up your powder measure. Okay, so we've got that done. Now we can actually start reloading. So the Lee 3-die set has 3 parts, and I'm going to walk you through all 3. So the first die we're going to deal with is this guy here. This is our sizing and depriming die. And you can't miss it because it's got this little pin in the middle. So when you're setting up your sizing and depriming die, here's our press. So here's our press. And when we're setting up our sizing and depriming die, the first thing we got to do is we got to put a shell holder in. So 45 Colt takes a number 11 shell holder. So we put that in the press. Voila. And you can turn it any way you want to. And you take your brass and you put it in your shell holder. Okay. This guy threads in. And the magic to the first die is real simple. You're going to thread this in. Okay, just put it in there nice and tight. Pull down on the press. Let's get you over here so you can see. And the trick is we're not far enough in. We're not far enough in, and I'll show you why. The shell holder has actually got to touch the die. If the shell holder doesn't kiss the die, you're not low enough. So what do? We're going to loosen that lock ring on the top, and we're going to scooch this thing down. Can't do it one-handed, so I'll be right back. All right, so I've adjusted this die downward. We're going to give this another push, and we're going to see that shell holder come up and kiss the bottom of that die. There you go. What has this done? This has done 2 things for us. I'll show you both. First thing it's done is it's actually squeezed this brass. Okay, so it's actually squeezed it down. It expands when it fires, so it's squeezed it down, and it's deprimed. So that's the first step. Easiest thing to do. It's the one die that anybody can do without screwing up. Okay, so first steps in reloading: select your bullet and cartridge, select your powder, then size and deprime. All right, we're going to sign off here. That's step 1 to reloading, and step 2 will follow. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments.